spending time with her husband, friends, family, including her 12 grandchildren. In her spare time, she connects and celebrates with the women involved in motorsports, taking you behind the wall about their journey of life, racing, and how they juggle everything to make it all work. Welcome to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Strap in, window nets up, the pedals are down, and when the green flag drops, we go.
Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with Racing Girls Rock Podcast. And it's my pleasure today to have as my guest, Kay Dub. And yes, that really is her name. And she's going to tell us more about herself and how she got interested in racing. So, Kay, welcome to the show. And why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, your family, where you live, anything that you want to share.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I saw the post on Facebook and I jumped onto it because I love the fact that there's men and women that are involved with all kinds of racing and sports. And so I jumped on it to kind of tell people about my experiences, my racing in boat racing and other kinds of sports, and how I've evolved from boat racing into doing like what you're doing with the podcasting and doing the announcing. So I started racing when I was 9 years old, born and raised into outboard hydroplane racing. My whole family has done it. My dad, my mom, my brothers have all raced. And it's just been in our family. I'm third generation of hydroplane drivers. I have a daughter, Lexi, who's 9 years old and will be the fourth generation of drivers. So I'm super excited about that. Started in the junior class of outboard racing, which is just the smaller classes. We do about 45 to 50 miles per hour in an outboard hydroplane. We're on our knees racing. And then I evolved up from J-Stock Hydro to an A-Stock and a Formula A Hydro, which goes about 60 miles per hour, to an OSY 400 is the name of the classes that I've raced. I raced OSY 400, D-Stock Hydro. I've raced all the way up to 1100 Runabout, which is a two-person boat, which my dad and I raced together. It was a lot of fun to be able to do that. So I've gone anywhere from the speeds of 45 miles an hour to about 75 miles per hour in an outboard hydroplane.
Well, thank you.
It is a lot of fun. In about 2000, we lost my dad in 2014 when he was too old to race and he decided to get out of the boat and start announcing. He passed away about 10 years after he was starting to announce, and I was at a boat race and I had one of the directors come up to me and say, "Hey, your dad's always announced for you or announced the races, and can you announce?" And I said, "Sure, I can go out there and say go stop. How hard could it be, you know?"
Right.
And so I announced at this race in between my racing, and a bunch of people came up to me and they said, "Your dad just came out on you." And I just kind of laughed. And I thought, "Oh, okay, yeah, I've been listening to him for a while."
Yeah.
And it evolved from there that I finished the rest of the season with the outboards racing and then announcing between racing. So I basically jump out of my boat, go grab a microphone and talk about the next classes that we're racing. And I was at Seafair the following year, which is the unlimited races that are here in Seattle. And a gentleman walked up to me named Jim Simpson, and he said, "Hey, I hear you announce." And I said, "Well, yeah, for the outboards, I've been doing it for about a year." And he said, "Well, I want you to come and announce for the unlimiteds." And I said, "Okay." And I thought he was just like, just going to say, "Okay, yeah, let's try and do this." Well, a month later, I went to the outboard nationals and announced the whole week. Well, he listened to it and saw some of the reviews of people saying, "I really like this girl that's announcing. Who is this? She knows what she's talking about." He called me the week later and he said, "Hey, I'm online right now trying to get your tickets to see San Diego." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, he's not kidding."
That's awesome.
So I went down to San Diego that year in 2015, and I announced for the H1 Unlimited hydroplanes along with the outboards. They also do Grand Prix inboards, and announced for them. The next year, H1 Unlimiteds asked me to come back and announce. So I got to go to Detroit, and I went to Seattle and I did Tri-Cities. Well, they went overseas to Doha, to Qatar, and I got invited to do that race too.
Wow. Nice.
So, yeah, it was a lot of fun to go international and to be able to see how the racing works over there. It was a great experience, an exceptional experience. Then 2 years later, I was at Seafair announcing, and another gentleman walked up to me named Chris Fairchild, and he said, "Hey, I need you to announce the Formula Tunnel boats." And I said, "Well, okay, I can try it. Sure, why not? It's boat racing. How hard could it be? And I announced there at Seafair that year for the Formula One tunnel boats, and I started my career. It just took off like that. The next year, I got asked to do a couple more races where I got to go to Bay City, Michigan. I've got to go to Houston. I've got to go to a lot of other places. 2000, I believe it was 19. I got to go to Mexico with the Formula Tunnel boats to announce down there. So I've traveled with the announcing, not only in the United States, but now I've started to travel international, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. People don't realize how much work does go behind the scenes of announcing. Well, you would know with all the work that you do, doing your research for drivers and people, women and men in racing. I have a lot of time invested into it where I have to not only learn the drivers, but I have to learn their complete history, because you do an interview, you need to know who you're talking to, right? You need to know them. I also have to learn the history of each race site that you go to. So like Seafair here in Seattle, I was born and raised here, so I know all about Seafair. But when I went to travel over to Bay City, Michigan, I had to learn the history of that, so that I knew what to talk about, what was around the local area. Then you have to learn all the sponsors for not only the race site, but you also have to learn all the sponsors for every boat. So I was
And
just
you have,
before you and I came on.
well, and you have to learn how to pronounce everything. That's the thing. You can't just look at how it's worded and think that you know how to pronounce it, because it's we shut that. It's Russell looks easy, but it might be pronounced something totally different. So that to me is a big part, because if you say a name wrong, ooh, look out.
I have heard that numerous times. There's people will come up to me before the races and they'll tell me how to say their name. They'll be like, "I know my name has got a lot of vowels," which a lot of names do have a lot of vowels and they're hard to pronounce. Along with the cities, because you have to remember we have to say the cities too. So like here in Washington, we have a couple cities that people will say it's Sequim, but it's actually Squim. I was just at the Stock Mod Junior Nationals in Springfield, Ohio last month, where I did Stock Mod Junior Nationals. We had 500 entries. So there was a lot of names to learn.
I guess.
The one that always sticks out for me, and I love this family, it is actually spelled Hubert, but in Louisiana, it's Hebert, is how they pronounce it.
Oh, a little French or something.
Yeah. So I have to learn how to pronounce. That's the other part of the research on the drivers, is you have to learn how to pronounce their first and last names. We do have a couple people that, like this weekend, I was just announcing for the outboard hydroplanes here in Seattle. And we had one that, we just we don't even try. It's Mikey P. And he actually goes by that. That is what he goes by, because nobody can say his last name. So he just goes by Mikey P. So that's how I announce it, as Mikey P. Some of the drivers I've noticed and have told me, they've said, just say my last name. Like Myers is my last name. So we just say Myers. And that's how they're known through, social media and through boat racing, is just by their last name.
Okay.
Some other people are known by, here's another example. In the unlimited hydroplane racing, there's Jeff Michael Kelly, but he goes by J. Michael Kelly. He doesn't go by Michael. He doesn't go by Mike. Everybody knows him as J. Michael Kelly. So that's really fun.
When you get to the point where they know who you are by one name, now you're in the categories with Cher and Beyonce and Prince. You tell
exactly.
them next time.
Yeah. And they always do say that if you have three names, that's usually not a good thing. That's usually a serial killer.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to go down that road for sure.
We don't want to go down that road. No. No. So that's the hardest part, is getting to know the drivers and the names, the cities that they're from, and all the race site cities. So there's a lot more work that goes into announcing that people don't realize. That I wanted to get out there that, it is so much fun to do. I enjoy it every time I go. I have so much fun. People always ask me, I know it's common. They always see me with my Diet Pepsi. So that is how I keep going all day long. Because some races, we had one here at Silver Lake Everett at the beginning of June that we literally raced for 8 hours. So I was speaking for 8 straight hours.
That's a long time.
It is.
That's a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, I think it would be a lot of fun. And you really probably make a connection to those drivers
Yes.
more so than in a lot of things that you could be doing because their sponsors and I'm assuming a lot of these people race at the same types of races. So, you get to know them and it just makes it easier and then you can kind of have fun with them too because there's probably some that you can have fun with and some that you can't.
Yeah. And you know who to interview and what to ask those certain people on questions. You know how it's going to come out.
Right.
A lot of these drivers I've raced with the outboards and watched them move through different categories, which makes it fun too. I've had drivers come up to me numerous times and say, I like when you interview me because it's just like talking to one of the guys. And I'm like, is that good or bad?
Well, it's a compliment, I think, coming from them.
Yeah.
I think it really is. And they admire that you know what you're talking about. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll tell them to new drivers that I haven't met in person or that I'm interviewing for the first time. I will tell them, I'm like, I'm going to ask you a basic question. I know the answer to it, but some of the people that are just now getting involved or just learning about hydroplane racing, they don't know. So
Right.
let's inform them. Let's get them involved. Let's get them, inside the cockpit of the boat. Let's tell them how it works,
Mhm.
because when you're watching a race from the outside, you don't realize what they're going through, what's going through their mind when they're in the boat, or who their biggest competition is. And then that just broadens the field.
Right. Absolutely. Because I'll be honest, I don't know very much about boat racing at all, but I want to learn more about it. I
I'd be
grew
glad
up,
to help you.
I know, I grew up circle track or, asphalt short track racing.
Yeah.
And my gosh, I've learned so much, especially this year about sprints. I went to Knoxville and, drag racing and I'm learning about all kinds of racing that I really haven't been able to be exposed to because we don't have it here where I live in Kalamazoo, so that's interesting. I did go though and this is I'll show you how much I don't know. My husband and I went to Key West several years ago, and the cigarette boats were there. That's what I call them.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
Okay, and so they had been racing that day, and we didn't get there till later in the day, and they were parked along the street.
Yeah.
So by the time they parked the truck with the boat behind it, it took up the whole block, I swear. They're so big and so beautiful. And so that's always been a little bit on my bucket list that I'd like to go to some kind of racing like that to see those boats race because I'll bet it's amazing.
Yeah.
Couldn't produce this podcast without our many sponsors. So at this time, let's take a listen to one of our amazing partners. If you're looking to buy, sell, or trade the stuff that strokes your engine, anything from truck parts to classic and muscle cars, RVs to hot rods, and everything in between, then check out the official classifieds at racingjunk.com. Racingjunk.com is the world's #1 online racing and performance marketplace, the ultimate one-stop shop where you'll find what you need to rock your ride. If it belongs in your garage, it's for sale on racingjunk.com. Log in to racingjunk.com to find the gear you're looking for, sell your extra stuff, keep up on racing news and tech tips, and more. Again, that's racingjunk.com.
When I was announcing the Formula Tunnels in Houston, they had them there too. So I got to watch a little bit of them. And of course, my curiosity, I walked over and I started talking to the drivers and, seeing how they worked. I didn't announce for them. They had their own announcer there for the offshore boats. But one of the perks of being an announcer is that you get into some of the bigger places.
Yeah.
I actually got to sit in the cockpit of one of the boats. It was the chocolate boat. It's a red boat, but it's sponsored by chocolate. And I sat in that boat and I was sitting with the driver, Tim, and I said, "How do you see out of here?" And he's like, "You don't. You watch the horizon and you watch the gauges, and that's it." I was like, I don't know if I
No,
could do this.
that would take a very special, very talented
Yes.
person. You
Yes.
don't just start out doing that, because that
No.
that sounds scary.
Yeah, it was crazy to sit inside that cockpit of that boat, and he took us all the way through all the escape hatches and everything, and showed us the motors. We got to go into the shop. We got to go see how everything was built, and it was an experience. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, that sounds very cool. I mean, I love seeing like the behind the scenes stuff, because again, people who just like go to the races, and we love all those people, right? Because we need them.
Right.
But to be able to go, like, the first time I ever went inside a hauler, a NASCAR hauler, and I saw all the stuff, and the gal was explaining everything to me. It just opened up my eyes to so many
Yeah.
things. And then she was telling me about sponsorships and how much they pay. And it happened to be Kroger was one of the sponsors, and she was telling me how, on the end caps during different times, that's why the car has Scott towels on it. And then
Yeah.
at Kroger, the Scott towels will be on an end cap or something. And now I notice that stuff,
Yeah.
it's just so cool. And there's so much to racing. It's not just somebody jumping in behind a steering wheel and going. There's just it's such an intricate sport, there's just so many things that have to work together, and the
Yeah.
pieces have to fit together.
Well,
And the announcer
and
has to know all that.
yeah, I have to learn it, and sometimes I learn it on the fly. It's just, it's that's part of it, but that's what's the fun part about it, is learning the stuff and learning how a driver has evolved. I mean, myself started in the J stocks, and I've worked my way up. I've got so many people here in Washington State and California that I've met and I've raced against, that I have personally been able to watch move forward up in their career. We have a race down in Silver Lake, Eatonville, that's called, and we have a program that's called New Folks and Boats. And what we do is you pay $50 and we'll put you in a boat just like mine that'll do about 70 miles an hour. Well, we had one gentleman that I just absolutely adore. He was a kid back then. He was 9, so we put him in a J boat, which was only about 45 miles an hour. And, he's 19 now. So he's been racing for 10 years, 10 short years of his racing career. He started in J stock, moved his way up to A, moved his way up to the bigger classes. And this weekend, we just watched him go out in the 45 SST, which is a tunnel boat that does about 65 miles an hour. And he's never been in a tunnel boat. And he went out there and did so good. And he's doing that. And he's also racing 2.5 stock, which is an inboard class. And it's just been fun to watch when he came to our club, to Seattle Outboard Association, and said, "Hey, I want to try this." And in 10 years, watching him grow, and he's
Mhm.
only 20 years old, his career's not even halfway started.
Oh,
And that's
right.
what's fun to see. And I
Yeah,
love
because
announcing for that.
he
It's
can
fun.
he can probably race for a long time, can't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's such a great kid. His family is amazing. I did catch him. My mom came to the race, and because my mom always still goes to the races, and my mom was sitting in a chair behind me because she just likes to do that. She just sits there and watches the races. And I turned back around, and Travis was sitting there talking to my mom, and it was really cute to see. And they were and he was asking questions about boat racing, and talking about my dad's career in boat racing. And he must have been back there for like 45 minutes just talking to my mom about boat racing. And it was so sweet to hear and to see a young gentleman that wasn't born in boat racing, but wanting to know about the history of boat racing.
And it had to just mean the world to your mom.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the best part.
Yeah.
And he didn't
Yep.
he didn't even know that. He didn't do that for that reason. And yet she probably will never forget that conversation.
Probably not. No, she looks so excited. And every time I turn around, she's sitting there laughing and she's smiling. And all of us boat racers have the saying of this one time at a boat race, And if you walk up to, and that's one of the questions that I'll ask people for interviews, I'll say, "What is your favorite story?" When somebody asks you about boat racing, what is your favorite story to say this one time at a boat race? And it's fun to hear people say, you want me to give you one?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's fun to see.
I bet
all
it
of that.
is.
And
So, on your bucket list, if you could announce, I know there's lots of different kinds of boat racing and all over the place. Where would you want to announce what kind of racing, where, what country, what city? Is there like the race to go to?
um, there's a few, as you would know. I've been lucky enough to check off announcing for the Stock Modern Junior Nationals. I've been able to do the Pro Nationals for the outboards. I've done the North American Championships for the inboards. But my goal in the end is to be able to start traveling more overseas to do the Formula tunnels for them, because what they do over there is amazing. The speeds, the history behind the Formula tunnel boats is just incredible.
Mhm.
I would put, there's a race in Australia that I would love to do for the U.S. champion, or the titles championships. I would love to do that. That's my bucket list, is to start keep working higher and higher to be able to get overseas to be able to do the Formula tunnel boats.
So it's interesting that you said Australia. So a couple of years ago in 2000, it was 2019, a gentleman reached out to me. Charlotte Camsey is a girl that drives some kind of race boat. I can't tell you what kind, you might know. But anyway, he reached out to me and we had several conversations. And I was actually going to go to, I believe, I'm not sure if it was Australia. And then there was another race. Gosh, now I can't even remember, but it was overseas. And he was going to pay for me to come and cover everything and follow her. And of course, guess what happened? COVID.
Yeah.
So haven't really had a lot, in touch with him recently. So I'm gonna have to check and see if she's still racing. And then there was another gal, Kiki Wong, his work or something like that was racing. She's a member of our group. And so I haven't really, I've been so busy this year. Once we all went back to racing, everybody came out of the woodwork,
Yeah.
but I need to find out if they're still racing and what they're up to, because I would love to do
Yes.
that.
Wouldn't that be fun?
So,
I would love to go there.
so let's talk about women in boat racing. Are there few and far between? Are they about half and half? Tell me about it.
There's probably about a third that are the women boat racers out there. When it comes to outboards, there's quite a few. When it comes to unlimiteds, there's only been 4, I believe I can count back in history, 5 that have been able to race like a whole series. When it comes to the Formula tunnel boats, there's a few that are back there, but they're overseas. When we come to the inboards, we've got quite a few in the inboards that are racing like 2.5 stock. There's some 5-liter drivers for the women. So you get quite a few that are in there, and they do really well. Mostly because the ones that are in there were born and raised in boat racing, and they know it, and they,
Right.
it's in their blood. Racing is in their blood, whether it be they started racing motorcycles and moved to boat racing or something, but racing's in their blood, so they
Yeah.
got that adrenaline rush.
Right. Right. Because that has to be, I typically ask a driver, what is it you love most about motorsports? So when you were driving, what kept you driving?
Mostly because I knew it was in my family, and I knew I was just born and raised around it, but I love the adrenaline. I love the competition, because I'm a very competitive person. I'm competitive with other people, competitive with myself. I take it, like, my competitiveness comes all the way down to my running. I run every day. I run in the mornings and I run in the afternoons, and I'm always trying to better my times when it comes to running. So I'm competitive both with other people and against people and with myself. So I love the thrill of going across the water and the feeling of going across the water when you're driving up and you're going to the first turn and there's 6 of us lined up and that your mind just goes into just warp mode of, okay, I got to get through this turn. I got to get through this turn. And then of course, victory is always, big.
Yeah.
I did do really well in a class called Formula Hydro where I set 4 records. I won nationals once. I podiumed 4 times, I believe, in that class over about 3 years. So I did really well with that class. But it's just, it's the thrill of the race. It's the fun of the race. Even last weekend, I was talking to some of my fellow drivers, and we were talking about a race down in Oregon that we had been to. It was my friend Jersey Holman. We were talking about how in one of our classes, we don't have an overlap rule. It's throttle to throttle. So if my throttle is just ahead of your throttle, I can take your lane. And him and I we hit boats all the time. We were bashing boats and we were laughing the whole time. It's the fun of being on the course with your best friend. I've raced against my best friend and I've raced against my family, and just the fun of winning is always good. But my dad always said, he goes, I love going to boat races with you. He goes, you'll go out to a race, you win, you're excited. You get second, you're excited. You get fifth, you're still excited, and you're like, what can we do to make it go faster? We need to work on this. We need to work on this to get faster. But you still have fun, and that's
Right.
what I love, is that it's fun. I just love boat racing, and I eat, breathe, and sleep it. A lot of my friends will comment all the time. They're like, what boat race are you going to this weekend?
Well, and I can tell just by watching your face now, some people are going to be just listening to this, but I will put this on YouTube. And so they will be able to follow, to see us. And your face is totally lit up when you talk
Yeah.
about, from the minute we've started, you have the biggest grin and your eyes are sparkling. And it's like, you can just tell that this is totally your passion.
It is. Well, and a lot of people come up to me and they're saying, after a weekend of announcing, they're just like, I had one gentleman this weekend actually that said that. He came up to me, Don Jones, and he goes, you were so much fun to listen to. He goes, you were cracking jokes, but you were saying names and you were calling the race all at the same time. He goes, I spit my cookie out because you had said something. He goes, I don't remember what it was, but it was just so funny what you had said. And I was just like, well, you gotta have fun with it. You can't,
Right.
Nobody wants to listen to a monotone here as they come kind of a person. They want to hear the excitement.
Yeah.
I want to put my fans into the cockpit of the boat. I want them to be able to feel the rush that they're feeling as a driver, and the excitement that I'm feeling as I'm watching the race. I like to draw my fans in as much as possible and keep them informed too of what's going on in the course. I like to inform them on the boats, the sizes, the shape, the speeds that they're doing. And that's what a lot of people say is that's the best part, is like when you're watching a baseball game, you want to know about that person that's up to bat.
Right.
You want to know the speed of that ball that's coming across the plate. You want to know if it's a strike or if it's a ball.
Yeah.
I like to keep people informed in an exciting way of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? Oh, they're coming into turn 2. What's going to happen? That's what I like to do.
That's so awesome. So are you still racing then too, or are you just announcing?
I do a little bit of both. If I'm not racing, I will try and get back into the boat. I'll say, hey, you know what? We usually run here in Seattle Outboard. We'll run a 3 flights in a day. And we'll have a set of boats in the first flight, a set of boats in the second flight, and a set of boats in the third flight. So sometimes what I can get away with is I'll say, okay, I'm going to announce first and third, but I'm racing second flight. So I'll keep trying to do that. I still have my racing equipment, so I love to get back into the boat. I've been asked a few times to announce when I'm announcing. They say, "Hey, do you want to go out in my boat?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" I was in Parker, Arizona, the last weekend of April, and announcing down there. And I made a deal with with my sponsorship. I said, "Hey, you get me down there, and I'll make you a trade. I get to go ride a Cracker Box, which is one of my bucket list rides." And so I got lucky enough that after the race, they did a little bit of an expedition run where I got to go out and go race out in the boat. It was so much fun. I also got to go out in a sprint boat, which is like, you see them going through the marshes.
Yeah.
Those are a lot of fun to see. So I got to go out in that boat. So with the announcing, not only do I get to still race my boat, but I get invited to go out in other people's boats.
Yeah.
And I
That's really cool. Now, I knew there were some boat races in Arizona because I go to Arizona in the winter. So, what time of year do they typically race down there? Do you know, or just different
they
series?
they have a couple different times of year that they race down there in Arizona. Usually in the spring, because in the summer it can be a little bit
Too
harder to
hot.
get on the water. NGKF1 with Tim Siebold has a race down in Havasu in the middle of
Yeah.
October. So they will be
Okay.
racing there. I'm hoping to get that job. I want to go down because that's going to be a big race. It's the 50th race for the bridge. So
Oh,
that's a big race with the NGKF ones and the tunnel boats. So I'm hoping to get that. When we were down in Parker, Arizona for that race, for the inboard race and the outboard race that I was announcing for, I went into town and they were racing the jet skis. So
oh,
the jet skis, I believe, are going down there and racing in 2 weeks down in Havasu, Arizona. So I think it's more like a spring and a fall.
okay.
Usually race.
Well, I'm gonna have to check that out because I'll be in Arizona sometime mid to late October. So maybe I'll get lucky.
Yeah,
And
it's the middle of October. I believe it's October 17th through the 19th in Havasu. It's going to be a big race.
okay. Well, I'll see if I were going to be there by then. I don't know, but we're trying to figure that out. So anyway, that'll be fun.
Well, you can find all the details on NGKF1 Facebook.
Okay, say that slower. What is it?
NGKF1.
NGKF1. Okay.
NGKF1, and that's brought to you by Tim Siebold. He's been running that race and working on that race. He's done a lot of back work on it, trying to get that race going. So I believe it's October 17th.
Okay. So what's your, you talked a little bit about bucket list. When you're done with your career and you're sitting in the chair behind your daughter who's now announcing,
and
you're sitting where your mom is, what's going to be the thing that you hope you've accomplished, or that maybe some kind of legacy you've left behind?
What I've been working for is that people say that they like my announcing, that I'm informative, that I bring the crowd in. I would love to have somebody say, I remember this one time at a boat race, the announcer girl came up to me and talked to me and did this. So there's two things that I want to be able to leave behind. When I was in Springfield, Ohio for the OPC Nationals, which was a week and a half after I did the Stockmont Junior Nationals, I was back in Springfield, Ohio at Champions Park Lake. I had one of the gentlemen from 2019. We were there in 2019. He emailed me. He found me on Facebook and he emailed me and he told me he liked my announcing. He was just a fan, just a spectator. And he said, hey, are you coming back next year? And so I said, well, of course I'm coming back. Him and I kind of messaged back and forth a few times. And he said, well, I'm bringing my grandson. And my light bulb went on. And I said, well, you better bring your grandson to the race. He did this year in 2021. And I talked to that grandson and I said, hey, who's your favorite driver? And he said, I really like the rinkers. And I said, well, guess what? Come with me. So I grabbed him and I brought him over to the Rinker trailer, and I introduced him to Terry Rinker and to Chris Rinker, who were at the races. Both Chris and Terry put him inside their boats, put the helmet on him, autographed him, gave him an autographed signature card. And that kid, I posted it on my Facebook because I even said, this is why I love my sport, love what I do. I'm able to this next generation inside the boat.
Right.
And it was so cute. His face lit up and I looked at him and I said, and he's like, thank you. That was so much fun. I go, there's no was about it. I took him over to some of the Mod VP boats. I put him in one of those, introduced him to the drivers. And he just was so excited. And his mom came up to me later on the next day, because she wasn't there that day. And she goes, you just made his whole life. He was so excited. And that's one of the things that I love doing when I'm announcing is I will pick fans out. It's not just a kid. I'll pick out an adult. I'll pick out a girl who I'm watching who's just can't keep her eyes off the water because she's watching a race. Or I'll see a grandpa with a son, and I'll bring him over to the race, and I'll be like, come on in, let's go look at these, let's go check them out. And so that's one of the things that I always wanted to say is that gentleman reached out to me after 2019, and he said, I want to see you back here in 2020, and I want to see you back here in 2021. I want to be able to say I made an impact on that kid.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to always be left to be known is I idolize a few other announcers that I've been born and raised watching and listening to. And luckily this weekend, I get to work with one of them. That's Brad Luce. I've listened to him. He has just as much energy as I do, which is so much fun. People always ask when we do announce together how much coffee is up there. But I love Brad Luce and the knowledge that he has behind all of the history of boat racing with H1 Unlimiteds. Jeff Ayler, he's back in Madison, Indiana, and he does those races. And everybody loves Jeff. I love listening to Jeff. Mark Allen, Steve Montgomery, you got Steve Michael, who he goes overseas and he can just spit out some of those Italian names. I don't know how he does it, but I want to be able to someday say and be able to be on the same platform as them. That is like my goal, is to be able to be on the same platform as Jeff Ayler, Brad Luce, Steve Montgomery, Mark Allen, Steve Michael, some of the big names that I've heard out there and listened to and studied. I just sat there for hours just studying how they do it, how they announce. And I just want to someday just be as good as them and everybody knows me as the girl announcer. And I have no problems with that because I think it's funny, but I want to be known as that girl announcer. Do you remember that girl announcer? That's what I want to be known as.
Because you're probably the only one.
I'm one of the few. There are a few and I've got one in training. She's a young outboard racer that she announced an outboard race because I was gone at an unlimited race, and she was asked to do it. And she did it, and she called me and she goes, "That was so much fun." And I sat with her and I said, "Okay, good. Let's work together. Let's do this."
Yeah, that's awesome because, you could be stingy and be like, I'm not sharing what I'm doing with anybody. But when you share and you open your hands and let go, it comes back tenfold.
Yeah.
It's like squeezing a handful of sand and when you open your hand, it's about gone. But if you just let the sand lay there, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like, I'm going to share with you what I've done because I want this to continue.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I want to watch Tay Diamond eventually start following the same footsteps that I am, if not stay in the same footsteps as me, and help her grow. She's a great girl, and she's done so much for the sport. Her dad and her mom, Missy, and they do so much for the sport that I want to give it back to them in the same factor that I want to watch her grow. She's a great outboard driver. I mean, she did a phenomenal job last weekend. But I want to watch her grow because she's doing so much for the sport and she's knowledgeable. She's been a driver. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Is that you see some of these announcers who's never been in a boat or never seen much boat racing. Tom Yarbo does the NGK F1s. He had told me the other day, we talked for like 45 minutes on the phone about the NGK F1 series. And he says he's never raced. And I said, I would never know that because of the knowledge that he has. He goes, I was born and raised around it. My dad raced. So that's what's fun, is to be able to see him. And I would love to work with him. He does a great job too. I've listened to him with the NGK F1 series for quite some time, and I admire him. The guy knows, and I think he knows most of it offhand. He can tell you the city, the state, the name of the driver, the boat number, the sponsor, and he can do it like that. And
that is something.
It's hard. People don't realize how
I'm sure it is hard. Yeah, I'm sure it is hard. Absolutely.
But it's
so
fun.
Tell me now. So tell me, where can people, like, if like me, I don't know a lot about boat racing. How am I going to find out where they're going to be, what kind of series are in boat racing? Now I know you can Google anything, but I know you can also tell me a little more about where's the best place to find out about where the races are going to be and that kind of thing.
Of course, like you said, Googling it. Social media is huge. I always use the biggest reference point, which is apba.org. And I announce that all the time. It stands for American Powerboat Association.org. That is like, they will give you information about every kind of racing there is,
Okay.
all the way down, starting with the RC boats. I've been asked to start announcing the RC boats now too. So you can have an RC boat, you can have outboards, they have inboards, they follow the Unlimiteds, they follow the Formula Tunnel boats. Any kind of racing that you could think of is American Powerboat Association at apba.org. I tell people to go there often.
Okay.
And Googling it through your social media, you would be shocked. If you go through my social media of who I'm following, you will see every kind of series that there is, because I'm online all day and you got to watch for this stuff. And then it expands out. But apba.org is your best starting point.
Okay.
That will tell you where your local club is at and all the races. It's got all the races listed on there, and it'll tell you where a club is that's around you. It'll give you a contact name of somebody to get a hold of.
Okay.
Where boats are being bought and sold. So if you want to buy a boat, that's where you can go, is apba.org.
So that was something I was going to ask you. So I know the boats probably range in big range of money, but like the top series, what do one of those boats cost?
Gosh, I mean, you're thinking, you can be talking about the offshore boats that are huge, and
Yes.
the limited doing next weekend in San Diego. They're huge. Man, I want to say they're probably $250,000. I mean,
Yeah.
they've got to be up there in pricing, and they vary.
Yeah.
Between how fast you want to go.
Well, it's just like
the biggest.
Yeah, it's just like NASCAR or any other series. You've got the top teams and the bottom teams and that. But and so do most drivers own their boats?
When it comes to the outboards and the inboards and the F1 tunnels, yes, they do own their own boats. When it comes to our outboards, we don't really have too many sponsorships that we rely on for the boat. The race sites usually do.
We couldn't produce this podcast without our many sponsors. So at this time, let's take a listen to one of our amazing partners. When you can't be at the racetrack to follow your favorite driver, log into My Race Pass on your phone, and you'll be able to follow all the action no matter where you are. My Race Pass provides stunning technology to grassroots motorsports for the most data-packed, instantly updated, race-related content engaging all motorsports enthusiasts. Get live timing and scoring on race day with My Race Pass Live. Any My Race Pass track or series that utilizes transponders will have their lap times displayed in the app. You can even check out historical lap times to see if drivers are faster or slower than last year. Subscribe to My Race Pass today and tell them Melinda from the IWMA sent you. How do you pay for your boat? How does that work?
Well, with my boat, I of course work Monday through Friday for it.
Yeah, like most people.
There's a lot of trading that you'll see that happens with boat racing. I'll trade. I see some people that are like, okay, I'll trade you. I build throttles, but you build props. How about we do some maneuvering and some swapping? With our family, I always got the hand-me-downs. We built a lot of our own boats, but a lot of them are hand-me-downs. Sponsorship is big and I always say that, go out and find a sponsor and explain to them how it works. I always call these boats a floating billboard. I heard that term once before when I was listening to an announcing job, that somebody said hydroplane racing is a floating billboard. And this was before social media was coming up. Because you figure, we had those 500 entries that were racing in Springfield, Ohio. They came from California, Washington, Texas, Florida, Michigan, from all over the place.
Right.
So you put your name on the side of that boat, it's all your people are going to see it and they're going to be like, what's that boat? And the first thing they're going to look up is the name that's on the side of that boat.
Right.
So that's where I always tell people they're floating billboards. Now with social media, it's even bigger. With, like I said, you go to apba.org or you go to H1 Unlimiteds or you go to Hydro News, you go to any of those kind of sites and you're going to see a boat with a name on the side of it.
Yeah.
You're going to see Home Street. You're going to see What's Up Doc Racing. You're going to see different kinds of names. You're going to see some of these that are up here.
Right. I saw all those behind you. Yeah.
Faster Health and Flow Racing. Flow Racing is one of the ones that did all the live broadcasting for the
Yeah.
Special my Junior Nationals.
Yeah.
So you figure at Flow Racing, those people are getting onto Flow Racing to watch a motorcycle race, and then they scroll through, they see an outboard,
Yeah.
and they're like, huh, how do I get involved in that? So
Or
a lot,
even just for them to watch and be
Yeah.
like, be somebody like me, which I have watched it on there
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit. And so then it's kind of like, oh, I would like to go see this in person. How do
Yes.
I find out where they're going to be that I can get to a race? And so, it's all about exposure. Get somebody to catch their eye watching a boat race, and away you go.
Yeah, and sometimes the way you go to a boat race and into the cockpit a couple years later, and now you're racing.
Yeah, not me, but I can see that would happen, because it would be like a magnet, just drawing people in. Like, come here, don't you want to get in and drive? Come on, you're missing all the fun. Any last things that I haven't asked you about that you would like to share about yourself, about boat racing, about announcing, anything at all?
Well, like you touched up on it earlier that when it comes to announcing, it's a lot of work, but I'm always willing to answer questions about boat racing and about announcing, and how it works, how it ties together. And I've always loved to talk about boat racing and how my career started and how my career evolved and how I kind of stepped away from being inside the boat as much as I used to be. I used to be in the boat all the time. And now I've moved on to announcing. And I love to tell people all the time, I'm like, you know what? If you want to get involved in boat racing, call me. I would love to help you. I will show you whatever kind of boat you want to race. There's driver schools that happen all across the states in all the different categories. I would love to see everybody in a boat. I want to watch it grow. My dad started racing back in the 60s, and he went to a boat race and he said, hey, that looks kind of cool. And now it's been in our family ever since. I want more people into the racing because we're a big family, a huge family. I've seen so many babies being born. I've seen marriages where the best man was their competitor. I mean, I will even say it at my wedding, two of my bridesmaids were fellow boat racers, and
Yeah.
I want to leave with the note that boat racing is so much fun on and off the course. Just listening to everybody talk and have so much fun. I mean, we were sitting there waiting for trophies on Saturday night and just walking around. Everybody was laughing and they're like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun to race with you in the turn 2. And oh my gosh, you jumped the gun. That was such a bummer. But you know what? Your second heat was so much fun to watch. And I like to see that. I like to see everybody having fun. That is the goal. That is my goal. My daughter always laughs at me because I coach her volleyball team. And I'm always like, did you have fun? That's what I want. That's the goal.
Right.
Did you walk away on Sunday from that boat race and say, I had so much fun at that race. I cannot wait for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's in the end, that's what it's all about. It really is. Yeah. Well, I have really, really enjoyed talking to you. You just I should have talked to you early this morning, because now I'm all like,
well, I'm up
and
at
it's 9:00 here, so I should be getting ready to wind down and go to bed. But
well, feel free to call me tomorrow. I get up every morning at 5:30 in the morning and I run 3 to 4 miles on the treadmill. So we can talk.
We can talk in the mornings. Okay, that's good to know.
But don't call me Friday morning. I'm going to be a little busy because I'll be shockingly at a boat race.
Yes, yes. I know you said that. And tell me where you're going to be this weekend.
This weekend I'm going to San Diego, California for the H1 Unlimited Bay Fair, a Home Street Bay Fair race. We're going to have H1 Unlimited. So we're going to have Grand Prix. We're going to have 1 liters. We're going to have outboards. We're going to have everything. It's all going to be so much fun.
And what a shame you have to go to San Diego.
Well, that's the thing, though. That's the only thing about announcing is that I get off the plane, I go to the pits, I go back to my hotel, I go back to the pits. A lot of times I don't get to go anywhere. I was announcing at a race in Houston, Ohio, and that was the one where they had the offshores. So the tunnel boats were on Friday and Sunday. The offshores were on Saturday. I had all day Saturday off. So I grabbed a bunch of boat racers. I said, you know what? NASA is 5 miles from here. So a bunch of boat racers went to NASA.
That's cool.
But usually you don't really get to see all that much of the town.
No, I
which,
know. Yeah.
but
the weather's beautiful there.
we've had great weather here. It's been amazing.
It's been nice. Yeah. It's been nice
Yeah.
here too the last several days. We've had some hot spells. I'm in Michigan. We've had some hot spells and it was very humid today and we're going to have some storms tomorrow, but it's September and we'll have some warm weather, but it'll start cooling off here and that's when I get the bug. I'm ready to head to Arizona, so that's where I'll be for the winter, but
See, I'm a little different. When it starts to get colder, I think snow.
no,
Because
no
I'm
thanks.
because I'm a snowmobiler too.
Okay. Well, that doesn't surprise me. So I know there's a lot of snowmobile racing in Wisconsin and Michigan. So I know that's not my thing. I'll watch that from afar.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. But I've really enjoyed talking to you tonight. This has been so fun. You're just so happy. You're so excited about boat racing, and how could anybody not want to go watch after watching you talk about it? So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
You're welcome. And for you and all of our listeners, feel free to come to a race, look me up, and see. I mean, I'd love to, you and me, we should meet at a race. Hopefully we'll be down at the Havasu race and I'll get you a boat.
There you go. And once we talk and do a podcast, now you're my friend, and so when we see each other, it's like seeing an old friend. So that's just how it works. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much for being on here and sharing what you do and your passion for it. I just love it. And hopefully I'll be able to get to see you in person, or at least start to follow the boat races a little closer, and we'll go from there.
Yep. I'm everywhere. Everybody, there is a joke that's on Hydro Racer Live, is where will K-Dub pop up next?
Okay.
So that's the one thing to watch is Hydro Racer. And he's so funny. He's like, where are you popping up this weekend? Where are you popping up this weekend?
That's fun. That's fun. I love it. Awesome. Well, have a great time this weekend, and then I'll see you on social media, if not somewhere before.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at International Women's Motorsports Association, or on Instagram and Twitter at the IWMA Nation. And if you know someone that should be on our show, drop us an email at iwmanation@gmail.com.